My name is Naomi Bowen. I'm 69 years old. And I felt something was deeply wrong in my home with my daughter and grandson. Every night I felt something strange happening in my grandson Nathan's room. One day, I decided to put up a hidden camera, and what I saw shocked me. I never could have imagined it. If you're hearing my story, please like this video to bring a little strength to this grandmother's heart. Subscribe so you don't miss my next life stories. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. It means so much to me. You know, for most of my life, I thought I understood what it meant to be a mother. I raised 3 children. I made mistakes, sure, but I loved them fiercely. I protected them. I thought I knew what danger looked like. I thought I could recognize evil when it stood in front of me. But I was wrong. Dead wrong. Because evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it wears your daughter's face. Sometimes it sleeps in the room next to yours. Sometimes it sits at your dinner table and says grace before meals. Let me take you back to the beginning. My life, before everything shattered, was quiet. Peaceful, even. I'd been retired for almost 6 years. My husband, Gerald, passed away 11 years ago from cancer, and after that I learned to live alone. I had my garden. I had my books. I had my church group on Wednesdays and my bridge club on Fridays. My house was small but it was mine, a 2-bedroom cottage on Maple Street with blue shutters and a porch swing that creaked in the summer wind. I had 3 children. 2 of them lived out of state with families of their own. But Jessie, my middle child, my only daughter, she was different. Always had been. Jessie was complicated. Moody. Hard to read. As a teenager, she'd been defiant and angry, always pushing boundaries, always testing me. She'd gotten pregnant at 19 with Nathan, and the father disappeared before the baby was even born. I helped her as much as I could. I babysat. I gave her money. I prayed for her. But Jessie was proud. Stubborn. She moved out when Nathan was 2, determined to prove she could do it on her own. For years, I only saw them on holidays. Nathan would visit during summers, and those were the happiest times. He was such a sweet boy. Big brown eyes that looked at you like you held all the answers in the world. Gentle. Thoughtful. The kind of kid who'd bring you dandelions from the yard and call them flowers. I loved that boy more than I can put into words. Then, about 8 months ago, Jessie called me. Her voice was tight, strained. She said she'd lost her job. Said her landlord was raising the rent. Said she needed a place to stay, just temporarily, just until she got back on her feet. And of course, I said yes. What kind of mother would I be if I didn't? What kind of grandmother would I be if I turned away my own daughter and grandson when they needed help? So they moved in. Jessie took my spare bedroom, and Nathan got the small guest room at the end of the hall. He was 12 years old then, on the edge of adolescence, all long limbs and quiet voices. I was thrilled to have him under my roof. I imagined us baking cookies together, watching movies, talking about school and friends and life. I imagined being the grandmother I'd always wanted to be. But it didn't turn out that way. Not at all. From the very first week, I noticed something was off. Nathan barely spoke. When I asked him about school, he'd give one-word answers. When I offered to make his favorite meals, he'd say he wasn't hungry. He spent most of his time in his room with the door closed. At first, I told myself it was just the adjustment. Moving is hard on kids. New school, new environment, living with an old grandmother he barely knew. Give it time, I thought. He'll warm up. But he didn't warm up. If anything, he became more withdrawn. More distant. His eyes started to look hollow. Dark circles appeared underneath them like bruises. He stopped smiling altogether. When I'd catch him in the hallway or the kitchen, he'd flinch if I touched his shoulder. He'd look at me with this expression I couldn't quite place, like fear mixed with shame mixed with something deeper, something more painful. And Jessie. Oh, Jessie. My daughter became someone I didn't recognize. She was always tense, always on edge. She'd snap at me for the smallest things. If I asked when she'd be home, she'd accuse me of being controlling. If I suggested Nathan needed new clothes or a haircut, she'd tell me to mind my own business. She became secretive, guarded. She started locking her bedroom door. She'd take phone calls outside on the porch where I couldn't hear. But worst of all was the way she controlled Nathan. She watched him constantly. She'd ask him where he was going if he left his room. She'd check his phone. She'd stand outside the bathroom door when he showered. At first, I thought maybe she was just being protective, maybe even overprotective. But there was something else in her eyes when she looked at him. Something cold. Something that made my stomach twist. I tried to talk to her. I really did. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after they'd moved in, I sat her down at the kitchen table with coffee and said, "Jessie, honey, I'm worried about Nathan. He seems so sad. So withdrawn. Has something happened? Is he being bullied at school?" She looked at me with such fury that I actually leaned back in my chair. "Nothing's wrong with him, Mom. He's just being a moody preteen. You wouldn't understand. You never understood me either. I'm not trying to attack you, sweetheart. I'm just concerned." "Well, don't be. He's my son. I'll handle it. You need to back off." And that was the end of that conversation. I felt like I'd been slapped. But I backed off, like she asked. I tried to give them space. I tried to tell myself that Jessie knew her own son better than I did. That I was just an interfering old woman who didn't understand modern parenting. But then the noises started. It was about a month after they'd moved in. I woke up one night around 2 in the morning to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. Then I heard a door creak open, Nathan's door. I lay there in the darkness, my heart pounding, listening. I heard muffled voices. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was harsh. Angry. Then I heard something else. A sound that made my blood run cold. It was Nathan's voice, and he was crying. I sat up in bed, debating whether to go out there. But before I could move, I heard Jessie's voice, sharp and commanding, "Stop it. Stop crying right now or I swear to God." Then silence. A door closed. Footsteps retreated. And I was left sitting in my bed, shaking, wondering what the hell I'd just heard. The next morning, I tried to catch Nathan alone. I waited until Jessie left for a job interview, and I knocked softly on his door. "Nathan? Honey? Can I come in?" No answer. "Nathan, please. I just want to talk to you." After a long pause, his small voice came through the door, "I'm okay, Grandma. I just want to be alone." "Did something happen last night?" "I thought I heard." "Nothing happened. Please, just leave me alone." The pain in his voice nearly broke me. But what could I do? I couldn't force him to talk to me. I couldn't break down his door. So I walked away, feeling helpless and afraid. The incidents continued. Some nights I'd hear nothing. Other nights I'd wake to the sound of Jessie's footsteps, Nathan's door opening, low voices, sometimes crying. Once I heard what sounded like something hitting the wall. Another time I heard Nathan begging, "Please, Mom, please, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." And every single time I felt like a coward for not intervening. But what was I supposed to do? Confront Jessie again and risk her taking Nathan and leaving? Call the police and tell them what, that I heard voices in the middle of the night? That my grandson seemed sad? They'd think I was a paranoid old woman. They'd dismiss me. And if Jessie found out I'd called them, she'd never forgive me. She'd take Nathan and I'd never see him again. So I watched. And I waited. And I looked for proof. During the day, I started paying closer attention. I noticed that Nathan had stopped eating breakfast. He'd pour cereal, but he'd just stare at it until it got soggy, then dump it down the sink when he thought I wasn't looking. His clothes started hanging off his thin frame. His face became gaunt. The dark circles under his eyes deepened until he looked like a little ghost haunting my hallway. I noticed other things too. Small things that added up to something terrible. Once, I saw him pull up his sleeve to scratch his arm, and I caught a glimpse of bruises, dark purple marks that looked like fingerprints. When I asked him what happened, he yanked his sleeve down and mumbled something about falling off his bike. But Nathan didn't have a bike. Another time, I found his pillowcase in the laundry, and it was stained with what looked like dried tears and maybe even blood. Jessie's behavior became even more erratic. She'd be sweet to Nathan one moment, stroking his hair and calling him my baby, and then she'd turn vicious the next, screaming at him for leaving a glass on the counter or tracking dirt on the floor. The mood swings were terrifying to witness. I can't imagine what they were like to live through. And Nathan's door started being locked at night. From the outside. I discovered this one evening when I walked past his room and tried the handle, thinking I'd check on him. It didn't turn. I stood there, staring at that locked door, and I felt rage building in my chest. What kind of mother locks her child in his room? What kind of mother treats her son like a prisoner? I confronted Jessie the next morning. Why is Nathan's door locked at night? She didn't even look up from her phone. He sleepwalks sometimes. It's for his safety. Sleepwalks? He's never sleepwalked in his life. Jessie, what's really going on? I told you. Stop interrogating me about every little thing. You're driving me crazy. I'm not interrogating you. I'm trying to understand why my grandson looks like he's dying, why he's so terrified, why you're locking him in his room. Get out of my face, Mom. Her voice was ice. Get out of my face right now or I swear we're leaving today. And there it was. The threat I'd been dreading. If I pushed too hard, she'd leave and take Nathan with her. And then he'd have no one. No one watching. No one cared. At least while they were here, I could monitor the situation. I could be nearby if he needed help. So once again, I backed down. Once again, I felt like a failure. But I couldn't just do nothing. I couldn't sit by and watch my grandson waste away, couldn't listen to him cry night after night and pretend everything was fine. I had to do something. I had to know the truth. That's when I made the decision. That's when I decided to install a hidden camera. The very idea made me feel sick. What kind of person spies on their own family? What kind of grandmother violates her daughter's privacy, her grandson's privacy, like some kind of creep? I argued with myself for days. I told myself I was overreacting. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that if Jessie ever found out, she'd never forgive me. But every time I saw Nathan's hollow eyes, every time I heard him crying through the walls, every time I saw Jessie's cold, calculating expression, I knew I had no choice. Something terrible was happening in my house, under my roof, and I had to know what it was. I had to have proof. Because without proof, nobody would believe me. Without proof, I couldn't save him. So I went to one of those electronics stores. I felt ridiculous, a 69-year-old woman asking the young clerk about hidden cameras. He showed me a small device, no bigger than a USB drive, with a tiny lens. It had night vision. It was motion activated. It could record for hours. It was perfect. And it was horrifying that I needed it at all. I bought it. I brought it home. And then I waited for the right moment. That moment came on a Thursday afternoon. Jessie had a job interview that she said would take a few hours. Nathan was at school. I was alone in the house. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the camera. I kept telling myself to just do it, just plant it and be done with it. But my legs felt like lead as I walked down the hallway to Nathan's room. The door was open. I stepped inside and looked around. The room was painfully neat, too neat for a 12-year-old boy. The bed was made with military precision. There were no posters on the walls, no toys scattered around, no signs of personality. It looked like a room in a hospital. Sterile. Cold. Sad. I placed the camera on top of Nathan's bookshelf, hidden behind a stack of books he probably never read. From that angle, it would capture most of the room, including the bed and the door. I tested it with my phone. The app showed me the live feed. Perfect view. Clear image. It was working. I felt like I was going to vomit. My heart was racing. My hands were still trembling. I kept thinking, what if this is all in my head? What if I'm wrong? What if I watch the footage and see nothing unusual, and then I'll know I'm just a paranoid old woman who's lost her mind? But deep down, I knew I wasn't wrong. Deep down, I knew that camera was going to show me something terrible. I just had no idea how terrible it would be. That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening for sounds. Around midnight, I heard them. Jessie's door opening. Her footsteps in the hallway. Nathan's door, the sound of a key turning in the lock. The door opened. Low voices. I wanted to get up. I wanted to burst into that room and demand to know what was happening. But I forced myself to stay in bed. The camera was recording. Whatever was happening, I'd have proof. I'd have evidence. I just had to be patient. The voices continued for what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes. Then I heard Nathan crying again, that same broken, desperate sound that had haunted my nights for weeks. Then Jessie's footsteps retreated. The lock clicking. Silence. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I just waited for morning, for Jessie to leave for another job interview, for Nathan to go to school, for the house to be empty so I could watch the footage. When that moment finally came, I thought I was prepared. I thought I'd braced myself for whatever I was about to see. I was so damn naive. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, my hands shaking so badly I could barely work the mouse. I opened the app. I found the footage from the night before. I took a deep breath. And I pressed play. At first, the room was dark and empty. Nathan was asleep in his bed, or at least lying down with his eyes closed. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. Then, at 12:03 a.m., the door opened. Light spilled in from the hallway. And Jessie stepped inside. She closed the door behind her. She stood there for a moment, just watching Nathan. There was something in her posture, something predatory, that made my skin crawl. Then she walked over to the bed and sat down on the edge. "Nathan," she said softly. "Wake up." He stirred. He opened his eyes. And the look on his face, oh God, the look on his face. It was pure terror. Pure, absolute terror. "Mom," he whispered. "Please. Please not tonight. I'm so tired." "I don't care if you're tired," she said, and her voice was so cold, so devoid of love or warmth, that I felt my heart crack. "You know what happens when you don't cooperate. Please, I'll do anything. I'll be better. I promise I'll be better." "You're always promising, Nathan. But you never change. You're weak." Just like your father. Weak and pathetic. I watched, frozen in horror, as Jessie reached out and grabbed Nathan's arm. She yanked him into a sitting position. He winced in pain. She pulled up his sleeve, and I saw what I'd glimpsed before, bruises. So many bruises. Some old and yellowed, some fresh and purple. Look at this, Jessie said, running her finger over the bruises. You bruise so easily. Like a peach. It's disgusting. I'm sorry, Nathan whispered, and he was crying now, tears streaming down his pale face. I'm sorry I'm disgusting. You should be sorry. Do you know how hard it is for me? Raising you? Dealing with you every single day? You ruined my life, Nathan. The moment you were born, my life was over. I was crying now too, tears blurring my vision, but I couldn't look away. I had to see. I had to know. Jessie stood up. She started pacing the room, ranting. I had plans. I had dreams. I was going to be somebody. But then I got pregnant with you, and everything fell apart. Your father left. My friends left. My mother, she spat the word, my mother judged me and pitted me and treated me like a failure. And it's all because of you. I didn't ask to be born, Nathan said, his voice barely audible. Jessie whirled on him. In one swift motion, she slapped him across the face. The sound echoed through the room. Nathan's head snapped to the side. He didn't cry out. He didn't fight back. He just sat there, taking it, like he'd learned that resistance was futile. Don't you dare talk back to me, Jessie hissed. Don't you dare. I gave up everything for you. The least you can do is show some gratitude. I'm grateful, Nathan whispered. I'm grateful, Mom. I promise. Jessie grabbed his face, her fingers digging into his cheeks. Are you? Are you really? Because it doesn't feel like it. It feels like you're just a burden. A weight around my neck, dragging me down. She released him and stepped back. Nathan's face was red where she'd grabbed him. He was shaking. And then Jessie said something that made my blood freeze. Maybe I should just end it. Maybe I should just put us both out of our misery. Would you like that, Nathan? Would you like it if I just ended all of this? Nathan's eyes went wide. No. No, please, Mom, I want to live. I'll be better. I'll be perfect. Just please don't. Don't what? Jessie leaned in close. Don't hurt you? But I'm not hurting you, Nathan. I'm teaching you. I'm making you stronger. One day you'll understand. One day you'll thank me. She pulled a pill bottle from her pocket. My heart stopped. I watched as she shook out 2 pills and held them in front of Nathan's face. Take these. What are they? Does it matter? Take them. Mom, please. Take them or I'll hold you down and force them down your throat. Your choice. Nathan took the pills with shaking hands. He put them in his mouth. Jessie handed him a glass of water from the nightstand. He swallowed. She watched to make sure he'd really taken them. Good boy, she said, and the tenderness in her voice was somehow more horrifying than the cruelty. She stroked his hair. You're such a good boy when you listen. Now lie down. Go to sleep. And don't you dare tell anyone about our special time together. You know what will happen if you do. Nathan lay down. He was crying silently, his thin body shaking under the blanket. Jessie stood there for another moment, watching him. Then she leaned down and kissed his forehead. I love you, baby, she whispered. I love you so much. That's why I do this. It's all out of love. Then she left. She locked the door behind her. And Nathan lay there in the darkness, curling into himself, crying into his pillow. The footage continued for another hour. I watched Nathan cry himself into unconsciousness, or maybe it was whatever drugs Jesse had given him. I watched him twitch and moan in his sleep. I watched him suffer. And I sat at my kitchen table, sobbing so hard I thought my heart would burst. My daughter. My baby girl. The child I'd raised and loved and protected. She was a monster. An absolute monster. And I'd brought her into my home. I'd let her torture my grandson under my roof. I'd heard him crying night after night and I'd done nothing. The guilt was suffocating. The rage was blinding. The pain was so intense I thought I might actually die from it. How could this have happened? How could I have not known? How could I have been so blind, so useless, so pathetically weak? But there was no time for self-pity. Nathan needed me. Nathan needed me to be strong, to be brave, to be the protector I should have been all along. I wiped my tears. I saved the footage. I backed it up in 3 different places. And then I called my son, David, who lived 2 states away. When he answered, I was still crying so hard I could barely speak. Mom? Mom, what's wrong? David, I choked out. David, I need you to come here. Right now. I need help. It's Jesse. It's Nathan. Oh God, David, it's so bad. It's so much worse than I thought. Slow down. What's happening? I told him. I told him everything. The strange noises. The locked doors. Nathan's deterioration. The camera. The footage. My voice shook with fury and heartbreak as I described what I'd seen. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end. Then David said, his voice tight with emotion, I'm getting in my car right now. I'll be there in 6 hours. Don't do anything until I get there. Don't confront Jesse. Just keep Nathan safe. Can you do that? Yes, I said. Yes, I can do that. Good. I'm on my way. We're going to fix this, Mom. We're going to get Nathan out of there. I hung up. I sat there for a long time, just breathing, trying to steady myself. Then I heard a sound that made my spine stiffen. The front door opened. Footsteps. Jessie was home. She walked into the kitchen, saw me sitting there, and frowned. You okay, Mom? You look upset. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to grab her by the throat and demand to know how she could do this, how she could hurt an innocent child, her own son, like this. But I forced myself to stay calm. I forced a weak smile. I'm fine. Just feeling a bit under the weather. She shrugged. Okay. Well, I'm going to take a nap. Long day. She walked past me, and it took every ounce of self-control I had not to attack her. This woman. This monster wearing my daughter's face. I sat there, trembling with rage, until I heard her bedroom door close. Then I got up. I walked down the hall to Nathan's room. I knocked softly. Nathan? Honey? Can you let me in? Silence. Nathan, please. I need to talk to you. It's important. After a long moment, I heard footsteps. The door opened a crack. Nathan's face appeared, pale and exhausted. His cheek was still red from where Jessie had slapped him. What is it, Grandma? I wanted to pull him into my arms. I wanted to hold him and tell him everything was going to be okay. But I knew that would scare him. So I kept my voice soft and calm. I just wanted to check on you. See how you're doing. I'm fine. Nathan. I took a breath. I know you're not fine. I know something bad has been happening. And I want you to know that I'm going to protect you. Whatever it takes, I'm going to keep you safe." His eyes filled with tears. His lip trembled. "You can't protect me." "Nobody can." "Yes, I can. And I will. Your Uncle David is coming. We're going to get you out of here. We're going to make sure she can never hurt you again." Nathan's face crumpled. "She'll find me. She always says she'll find me if I tell anyone. She'll hurt me worse." "No, she won't. I promise you, Nathan. She's never going to hurt you again." He started crying then, really crying, and I couldn't help it. I pulled him into my arms and held him while he sobbed. He was so thin. So fragile. Like a bird with broken wings. "It's going to be okay," I whispered into his hair. "It's going to be okay, sweetheart. I've got you. You're safe now." David arrived 6 hours later, just as he'd promised. I met him at the door and immediately showed him the footage. I watched his face as he watched the video. I watched the horror dawn in his eyes. I watched his hands clench into fists. When it was over, he looked at me with tears streaming down his face. "How long has this been going on?" "I don't know. Months? Years?" Nathan won't say. He's too scared. We need to call the police. And Child Protective Services. And we need to get Nathan out of this house right now. But what if they don't believe us? What if Jessie talks her way out of it? What if they give Nathan back to her?" "Mom." David gripped my shoulders. "We have video evidence. We have Nathan's physical injuries. We have your testimony. They'll believe us. But we have to act now." He was right. I knew he was right. But I was so scared. Scared of the consequences. Scared of losing Nathan. Scared of what would happen to Jessie. Because despite everything, despite the monster she'd become, she was still my daughter. Some small, broken part of me still loved her. But Nathan mattered more. Nathan's safety mattered more. So I nodded. "Okay. Let's do it." David called 911. He explained the situation calmly and clearly. He told them we had video evidence of child abuse. He told them a minor was in immediate danger. They said officers were on their way. While we waited, Jessie emerged from her bedroom. She saw David and her face went pale. "David? What are you doing here?" "I'm here for Nathan," he said, his voice like steel. "What are you talking about?" "Nathan's fine." "No, Jessie. He's not fine. We know what you've been doing to him. We have proof. The police are on their way." For a moment, just a moment, Jessie's mask slipped. I saw panic flash across her face. Then anger. Then something calculating. "You don't know what you're talking about," she said. "Nathan's been lying to you, hasn't he? He's been making up stories. He does that sometimes. He's got issues, emotional problems." "Stop." David's voice cut through her excuses like a knife. "Just stop. We have a video, Jessie. We've seen what you do to him. The abuse. The pills. Everything." Jessie's face went from pale to red. "You've been spying on me? You put a camera in my son's room? Your son?" I found my voice, finally. I stepped forward, and all the rage and pain I'd been holding back came pouring out. "Your son? You call him your son after what you've been doing to him? You've been torturing that child. You've been destroying him piece by piece. What kind of mother does that?" "I am his mother." Jessie screamed. "I've sacrificed everything for him. Everything. And he's never grateful, never appreciative. He's a child. David shouted back. He's a 12-year-old child and you're supposed to protect him, not abuse him. The front door burst open. Police officers flooded in. Everything happened so fast after that. Officers separated us. One took Jesse into the living room. Another talked to David and me in the kitchen. A female officer went to Nathan's room to check on him. I heard Jesse yelling, denying everything, calling us liars, saying we'd manipulated the footage, saying Nathan was disturbed and made things up. But her protests didn't matter. When the officers saw Nathan, when they saw his bruises, his malnourished body, the terror in his eyes, they knew the truth. An ambulance came. Paramedics examined Nathan. They found evidence of long-term physical abuse. Malnutrition. Signs of drugging. They took him to the hospital for a full examination. David went with him. I wanted to go too, but the police needed me to give a statement. I sat in my kitchen with two officers and told them everything. I showed them the footage. I told them about the locked door, the strange noises at night, Nathan's deterioration. I told them about my suspicions and my fears and my guilt for not acting sooner. You did the right thing, ma'am, one officer said. You probably saved that boy's life. But I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a failure. A coward who'd waited too long, who'd let Nathan suffer for weeks before finally finding the courage to act. They arrested Jessie. I watched through the kitchen window as they put her in handcuffs and led her to the patrol car. She was crying, screaming that this was all a mistake, that we were ruining her life, that Nathan was lying. Even then, even faced with overwhelming evidence, she couldn't admit what she'd done. She couldn't accept responsibility. And as I watched them drive her away, I felt something break inside me. That was my daughter. My little girl. I held her when she was born. I'd kissed her scraped knees. I'd celebrated her birthdays and cheered at her school plays and dreamed of the woman she'd become. But she'd become this. A monster. An abuser. Someone who tortured her own child. How had I missed it? What signs had I ignored when she was growing up? Had there been darkness in her even then, and I'd just been too blind or too naive to see it? Nathan spent 3 days in the hospital. They treated his injuries, addressed his malnutrition, and ran psychological evaluations. David and I visited him every day. At first, he barely spoke. He'd just lie in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, looking lost and broken. But slowly, gradually, he started to open up. He told us things that made my heart shatter into a million pieces. He told us the abuse had been going on for 2 years. 2 years of physical violence, emotional torture, forced medication to keep him compliant and quiet. He told us Jessie would beat him and then cuddle him, telling him she loved him, that it was all for his own good. He told us she'd threatened to kill both of them if he ever told anyone. He told us he'd tried to hide it from me when they moved in. He'd tried to protect me from the truth because he was afraid Jessie would hurt me too. This child, this brave, broken child, had been protecting me while I'd been failing to protect him. The guilt was crushing. But I couldn't drown in it. Nathan needed me to be strong. He needed me to be the grandmother, the guardian, the safe haven he'd never had. Child Protective Services got involved. There were meetings, evaluations, and court hearings. Jessie was charged with multiple counts of child abuse and endangerment. The district attorney told us she'd likely face significant prison time. The question became, where would Nathan go? I didn't hesitate. He'll live with me. He's my grandson. I'm his family. Mrs. Bowen, the social worker, said gently, given your age and the severity of Nathan's trauma, we need to make sure this is the right placement. He'll need therapy, structure, possibly medication. I can provide all of that, I said firmly. I'm 69, not 90. I'm healthy and capable. And I love that boy more than anything in this world. He needs stability. He needs a family. He needs someone who will fight for him. That's me. David backed me up. I'll help too. I'll visit regularly. We'll make sure Nathan has everything he needs. After multiple evaluations and home visits, they approved me as Nathan's guardian. He came home on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I'd cleaned his room, taken down the camera, replaced it with new curtains and some posters I thought he might like. I'd bought new clothes in his size. I'd stocked the kitchen with his favorite foods. When he walked through the door, he looked around nervously, like he was expecting something bad to happen. "You're safe here," I told him. "This is your home now. For as long as you want it." He looked at me with those big, haunted eyes. "What if she comes back?" "She won't. She's in jail. And even if she somehow got out, I wouldn't let her anywhere near you. I promise, Nathan. You're safe now." Slowly, carefully, he nodded. The weeks that followed were hard. Nathan started therapy twice a week with a specialist in childhood trauma. Some days were good. Some days he'd smile at something on TV or eat a full meal. But other days were dark. He'd have nightmares and wake up screaming. He'd flinch when I raised my hand to wave. He'd refuse to eat because Jesse had told him he was too fat, too greedy, and didn't deserve food. But bit by bit, day by day, he started to heal. He started to put on weight. The dark circles under his eyes began to fade. He started talking more, sharing stories about school, about things he was interested in. He even laughed once while we were watching a comedy show together, and the sound was so beautiful it brought tears to my eyes. His therapist said the road would be long. She said trauma like this doesn't disappear overnight. There would be setbacks. There would be bad days, bad weeks even. But she also said that Nathan had something crucial working in his favor. He had someone who loved him unconditionally, someone who was committed to his healing. He had me. And I was committed. More committed than I'd ever been to anything in my life. I went to every therapy appointment with him. I learned about trauma responses, about triggers, about how to create a safe environment. I learned that healing isn't linear, that progress might look like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. I learned patience I didn't know I had. I also learned about my own failures. In therapy sessions, the counselor gently helped me understand that I wasn't responsible for Jesse's actions, but I did need to acknowledge where I'd missed signs, where I'd chosen comfort over confrontation. That was hard to face. It still is. David visited every few weeks. He'd take Nathan to baseball games or movies. He'd talk to him about guy stuff that I couldn't help with. He became the positive male role model Nathan had never had. My other children, once they learned what had happened, also stepped up. They called regularly. They sent care packages. They showed Nathan that family could be safe, that love didn't have to come with conditions or violence. The court case moved forward. I had to testify. I had to sit in a courtroom and look at my daughter while describing what I'd witnessed, what the camera had captured. Jesse's lawyer tried to argue that she'd been suffering from postpartum depression, 12 years after Nathan's birth, and that she'd been under extreme stress. They tried to paint her as a victim of circumstances. But the prosecution presented the video evidence. They brought in Nathan's doctors. They showed photos of his injuries. And the jury saw through the excuses. They saw what I saw, a woman who had systematically tortured her child for years, who had shown no remorse, who had only stopped because she'd been caught. Jesse was sentenced to 15 years in prison. When the verdict was read, she turned and looked at me. There was such hatred in her eyes. Such blame. Like this was all my fault. Like I'd betrayed her by protecting her son. I stared back at her and felt nothing. No love. No pity. No regret. The daughter I'd raised was gone, if she'd ever really existed at all. In her place was a stranger who'd hurt an innocent child. And that stranger was getting exactly what she deserved. Nathan wasn't in the courtroom. We'd decided it would be too traumatic for him. But when I got home and told him the news, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Relief, maybe. Or validation. The system had believed him. His abuser was being held accountable. Justice, however imperfect, had been served. "She can't hurt me anymore?" he asked quietly. "No, sweetheart. She can't hurt you anymore." He nodded. Then, for the first time since I'd known him, he hugged me voluntarily. He wrapped his thin arms around my waist and held on tight, and I held him back, and we both cried, not tears of sadness, but tears of release. Of freedom. Of survival. That was 8 months ago. Today, Nathan is 13 years old. He's gained 20 pounds, healthy weight that fills out his face and makes him look like the child he should have always been. He's doing better in school. He's made a few friends. He still has bad days, still has nightmares, still flinches sometimes when he hears loud voices. But he's healing. He started drawing. His therapist suggested it as a way to express emotions he can't articulate. His pictures are sometimes dark, shadowy figures, locked doors, scary faces. But lately, they've started including brighter things. Sunshine. Trees. A house with blue shutters and a porch swing. A stick figure labeled Grandma with a big smile. He stuck one of those drawings on my refrigerator last week. It's still there. Every time I see it, I'm reminded of why I did what I did. Why I planted that camera. Why I risked everything to uncover the truth. Because that child, that beautiful, brave, resilient child, deserved to be saved. Deserved to be loved. Deserved to have a childhood free from fear and pain. I still struggle with guilt. I still wake up some nights thinking about all the times I heard him crying and didn't act. All the warning signs I dismissed. All the excuses I accepted from Jesse when I should have pushed harder, demanded answers, protected Nathan sooner. My therapist, yes, I see one too now, tells me that guilt is natural but that I can't let it consume me. She reminds me that I did eventually act. That I did save Nathan. That recognizing abuse within your own family is one of the hardest things a person can do, and I found the courage to do it. She says I should forgive myself. I'm working on that. Some days are easier than others. But here's what I know for certain: evil doesn't always announce itself. It doesn't always wear an obvious disguise. Sometimes it lives in your own home, wears your daughter's face, sits at your dinner table. Sometimes it hides behind closed doors and whispered words and threats that keep victims silent. And if you feel something is wrong, if your gut is screaming at you that someone you love is in danger, you have to listen. You have to act. You can't wait for perfect proof or the right moment or someone else to intervene. You have to be brave, even when you're terrified. You have to be willing to face uncomfortable truths, to risk relationships, to do whatever it takes to protect the vulnerable. Because children like Nathan are depending on us. They're suffering in silence, hoping someone will notice, praying someone will save them. And if we don't? If we look away, if we make excuses, if we prioritize our own comfort over their safety? Then we're complicit in their suffering. I almost made that mistake. I almost let my fear of confrontation, my desire to keep peace, my reluctance to believe the worst about my own daughter stop me from protecting my grandson. I almost failed him completely. But I didn't. At the last possible moment, I found my courage. I planted that camera. I watched that footage. I called for help. I saved him. And now Nathan has a chance at a real life. A life where bedtime doesn't mean terror. Where love doesn't come with bruises. Where he can be a child, messy, loud, happy, free. That's all I ever wanted for him. That's all any child deserves. Some of you watching this might be in a similar situation. You might suspect something is wrong with a child in your life. You might hear things that don't add up, see signs that worry you, feel that gnawing intuition telling you something's not right. Please, I'm begging you, don't ignore it. Don't tell yourself you're overreacting. Don't prioritize keeping the peace over keeping children safe. Trust your instincts. Investigate. Ask questions. And if you find evidence of abuse, act on it immediately. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it might destroy relationships. Yes, you might be wrong, and if you are, you can apologize and rebuild. But if you're right? If there's a child suffering and you do nothing? You'll have to live with that for the rest of your life. I know because I almost had to live with it. I almost lost Nathan because I was too scared, too uncertain, too willing to give Jesse the benefit of the doubt. If I'd waited even one more week, I don't know if Nathan would still be here. Jesse was escalating. The pills she was giving him were getting stronger. She'd started talking about ending it all. Nathan could have died in that room, in my house, while I lay in my bed just down the hall, too paralyzed by fear and doubt to save him. That thought haunts me. But it also drives me. It drives me to share this story, painful as it is. It drives me to speak up, even though I'm ashamed that it took me so long to act. Because if my story, if Nathan's story, can convince even one person to trust their instincts and protect a child in danger, then maybe some good can come from all this pain. Children are so vulnerable. They depend on adults to keep them safe. And when the very people who are supposed to protect them become their abusers, they have nowhere to turn. They're trapped. They're voiceless. They need someone from the outside to see what's happening and intervene. Be that someone. Be the person who asks the hard questions. Who makes the difficult phone calls? Who risks family drama and social awkwardness and personal comfort to ensure a child's safety? Because that child's life is worth more than your convenience. That child's well-being is worth more than your fear. Nathan was lucky. He had me, eventually. He had David. He had a system that, for once, actually worked to protect him. But so many children aren't that lucky. So many suffer in silence until it's too late. Until they're permanently damaged or dead. Don't let that happen to a child you know. Pay attention. Trust yourself. Act. Nathan just started 8th grade. On his first day, he was nervous. He stood in the kitchen that morning, fidgeting with his backpack straps, looking like he might bolt at any second. What if the other kids ask about my mom, he said quietly. What if they ask where she is? I thought about it for a moment. Then I said, you can tell them whatever feels right to you. You can say she's not in your life anymore. You can say you live with your grandmother. You can tell them the whole truth or none of it. Whatever makes you feel safe and comfortable. He nodded slowly. I think I'll just say I live with you. That we're a family. We are a family, I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. You and me. We're family, Nathan. And I'm so grateful you're here. He smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. Me too, Grandma. Me too. He went off to school. And I stood on the porch, watching him walk down the street with his backpack slung over his shoulder, and I thought about how far we'd come. How much we'd survived. How much stronger we both were. The journey isn't over. We still have therapy. We still have hard days. We still have years of healing ahead of us. But we're doing it together. We're building something new from the ashes of what was destroyed. We're creating a life based on safety, trust, and genuine love. And you know what? Despite everything, despite the pain and the trauma and the betrayal, I have hope. Hope that Nathan will continue to heal. Hope that he'll grow into a strong, compassionate man who knows he deserves love and safety. Hope that this nightmare he lived through won't define him but will instead become part of a larger story of survival and resilience. He's a fighter, my Nathan. He endured 2 years of abuse and didn't break. He protected me even when he needed protection himself. He found the courage to trust me, to accept help, to begin healing. If he can do all that at 13 years old, imagine what he'll accomplish as he grows up. I'm so proud of him. So grateful for him. He's taught me more about courage and strength than I ever taught him. He's shown me what it means to survive. To endure. To hope even when hope seems impossible. And I promise him this, every single day, I will never let anyone hurt him again. I will never look away. I will never prioritize my comfort over his safety. I will be the grandmother, the guardian, the protector he needs. For as long as I live, he will have a safe home, unconditional love, and someone who believes in him. That's my job now. That's my purpose. And it's the most important thing I've ever done. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it was hard to hear. It was hard to live, and it's hard to tell. But I believe in the power of truth. I believe that sharing our pain can help others recognize their own situations and find the courage to act. If my story resonated with you, please like this video. It would mean the world to this old grandmother, and it helps others find this story who might need to hear it. Please subscribe to my channel. I'll be sharing more life stories, more lessons I've learned, more truth about the difficult realities we sometimes face. And please, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. It comforts me to know that people all over the world are listening, that Nathan's story and my story might reach someone who needs to hear it. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me your own stories if you're comfortable sharing. Tell me you're paying attention to the children in your life. We have to look out for each other. We have to protect the vulnerable. We have to be willing to see the truth even when it's painful, even when it shatters our illusions about the people we love. Because children like Nathan are counting on us. They're waiting for someone to notice. To care. To act. Be that someone. Trust your instincts. Protect the innocent. And never, ever look away from suffering, no matter how uncomfortable it makes you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And thank you for being the kind of person who would watch this entire story, who would sit with this pain, who would carry this message forward. From my home to yours, wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is, thank you. Nathan and I send you our love and our hope that you'll use your voice and your courage to protect those who cannot protect themselves. God bless you all. And please, hug your children, your grandchildren, the young people in your life. Tell them they're safe. Tell them they're loved. Tell them they matter. Because they do. Every single one of them matters. Thank you for being here. Until next time, this is Naomi Bowen, signing off.